Debra Mandel is a psychologist, a relationship expert, and author. And I first read about her when she had then a new book called Mothers and Daughters, Sassy and Rude, Her New Attitude. And I said, that's me. I'm an oldest daughter. And even though my mother has now been dead for about 17 years, that relationship still informs the kind of person I am, the relationships I have. It's a very complex, intense relationship, which is why we have a professional here to try to unpack things for us. So if you're an eldest daughter, you want to listen up. And if you're not, maybe you have an older sister. This would be good for the two of you to consider. And maybe barring that, you may just be a curious person about sibling relationships. Whatever the situation, this is bound to be a very interesting podcast. Thank you to my guest, Debra, and welcome to Older Women and Friends.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. And we were chatting right before this. I can't believe how vivacious and energetic you are.
Okay,
my goodness.
Bring it on. I paid her for it.
I got it.
I paid her to say that. No,
you didn't. And it's so impressive to see, you become an inspiration to us as, I'm a bit younger than you are, but my goodness, what an inspiration you are to me. And I had actually my stepmom, she lived to be 97, I think she was,
wow.
Which was, quite up there. My own mom passed away she was only 58. So I hear the sadness when you talk about your mom.
Yeah.
So,
it's been 17 years for me, and it's like, you just hear something, you see something, I don't know, you look at a book, a title, a piece of music, who knows what sets it off and gets all those memory juices rolling. But and damn it, I still miss her, and it's been 17 years. So it never ends. We just hope to carry on, be happy, and hopefully in some way, if they're still hanging around, I don't know where or how, then, we're making them proud. So thanks, Mom.
Yeah. It's always good to be thankful and grateful for the time that we did spend with our parents, even if it was difficult times, because, they're our parents and we need them.
That's correct. So I love to ask guests, and so you are going to be asked the question as well. What were you like as a kid?
Do you want my mother's version or my version?
Because this is about mothers and daughters, I think it would be interesting to do both of them.
Okay, so I saw myself as a very doting and loving little girl, very playful, very adoring. I loved my mom so much. Unfortunately, my mom came from a very difficult past herself, and she did not know how to be expressively loving.
Aww.
So I was the kid that loved hugs and loved nurturing and all that. That was not my mom. So I became sad as I was growing up. I became sad. My mother became angrier. I think she really resented the life that she had because she gave up a career in modeling. She was an immigrant. She had all this fun stuff by the time she was set free, if you will, from her own family. And my dad was a bit controlling, so it was a very challenging time. So by the time I became a teenager, I was bloody hell, man.
Uh-oh.
I was just, but they never knew. My parents never knew because I kept it completely from them. But I was out doing all the bad things, seeing all the wrong people in the wrong places, got into drugs, eating disorders, all kinds of stuff. So it was a really challenging life for me, which is what drew me to psychology, because I'm like, I got to figure this out because I'm going to either kill myself or I'm going to figure this out and help people. And that's what happened. So my mother would probably say that I was too needy, I was too much for her. And then she would also say that I was fiercely independent because I learned at an early age I can't need anybody because no one's really going to be there for me. So it was a challenging time, actually. But when my mother passed, it was one of those times where we had had a falling out right before because I was trying to get her help. And, I really had so much pain that she was no longer here. And that inspired me to write my very first book, which was Healing the Sensitive Heart. And it was all about how we let go of old wounds and we find new ways to relate to people and we don't become magnets for the same treatment that we got and we do something better. And that led me to my writing career.
I was going to say, so how do you encourage people to go about that process of beginning to do what's good and healthy for you instead of, as you said, running around, getting into drugs, who knows what else, eating disorders? What are some steps that a person can take, that a daughter can take? I'm sure it relates to any person, but let's talk about mothers and daughters.
Yeah. So actually the inspiration for this most recent book, Sassy and Rude, Her New Attitude, was from my own daughter, who is now in her 30s. And she is one of the sweetest souls I've ever met on the planet. I mean, just such a delight. She just loves. She's just a heart full of love. And I will take a little bit of credit for that because I did try to not create the same wounds in her that were created in me that I had to heal. But it's interesting because no matter what, mothers and daughters will go through their own turmoil. It's inevitable, quite frankly. So any mom that's listening out there, any daughter who's listening out there, it's normal to go through that process. But when it gets really severe and you can't really feel like you can have a relationship with your mom, that's when you got to get nose to the grind here and do some certain things. And what I found that was one of the most critical pieces of healing is dealing with shame, dealing with the ways in which we may have processed something internally that turned it into, it's my fault, I'm bad, I'm unworthy, I'm not lovable, right? Because we can interpret that when we're little. We don't know how to interpret the world.
Correct.
We require our parents, our family, our friends, our siblings to help us to interpret that. And it can be very challenging. So healing that shame is absolutely critical. And you're probably thinking, how do we do that?
Correct.
That's a very, right.
It sounds like an easy task, but I think it's Herculean in some instances. So I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
I think the very first piece is to identify that you have shame. A lot of people, shame goes, it's kind of like, it's behind the scenes sometimes. We don't even know how it shows up. It could be somebody may have developed very good adaptive mechanisms or coping mechanisms to be like, fine, everything just rolls right off me. But deep inside, if you're not at ease with yourself and you're criticizing yourself, or you're a perfectionist, or you're constantly avoiding criticism, or you're constantly doling out criticism, all these can be indicators of shame. Poor self-care, not treating yourself the way you might treat your own child. I mean, I really had to learn that as a mom. I was not treating myself with the same care that I was giving to her. Like, I took all my energy to her, but I didn't stop to say, wait a second, I got to breathe. I've got to eat. I've got to do stuff. So we really need to learn how to do that we need to care for ourselves in the ways that we would care for our most precious, prized possession, person, animal, loved one in the world. Forget the possession of it, whatever. Take that out.
Edit it.
That's old. That's old programming for myself, right? We take care of things better than we take care of people sometimes.
Absolutely. I was just looking at my notes. I was cheating because I was really surprised to hear that there is something called the eldest daughter syndrome. Is that something you've heard about? If it is, what do you think it means? And if not, just give me a guess. What the hell is the eldest daughter syndrome?
Well, I love that question, and I'm probably going to give you a disappointing answer because in my work of doing this as a psychologist, I have seen so many variations. Yes, eldest syndrome, middle child syndrome, youngest child syndrome, the baby syndrome, or whatever you want to call them, and all their different things. It really depends. It's very family specific. So you can have an older child in one family that meets certain stereotypes, like that's the one who's put more responsibility on them. They're treated as the one that's going to be the most successful because all the energy goes into them. And then the other ones, like moms kind of mellow out, dads mellow out. There's less punishments maybe, or fewer consequences to things. And when we take those permutations, like you take maybe you had a mom who was an only child, like my mom, or I have a sibling, but we were very different. I was the younger, but I probably was more the eldest child syndrome, because much more was put upon me to succeed, to do the best things in life. My dad would say, Deborah was born with her hands like this, figuring out the world. Like, what do I have to figure out here? My sister was born with both hands out. Give me whatever you have and I'll take it. And this was his running joke, right? So I was the one who was to succeed. I was the one who didn't get the help because Deborah's got it. Deborah's going to be able to do it. Not that my sister is not successful. She is quite successful, but she didn't have as much of that responsibility. So I'm going to say, again, probably disappointing you. I don't know that it's so pure that way.
Well, it's not disappointing me. I'm disappointed kind of in myself for even asking the question. Why? Because I authored a book called Brothers and Sisters, How They Shape Our Lives. And I should know that it really is, there's certain stereotypes that exist for all of those different relationships and combinations. But when push comes to shove, some of them may be accurate, some of them may not, but it really is dependent upon the individual family and all of that stuff going on. So I wasn't, yeah, go ahead.
Say, what a beautiful gift, though, you gave some people to be able to resonate with that. So there's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about asking that question. It's a beautiful question. And many stereotypes come about because they do have some merit. They have some value in that. And so if you can help a group of people because that fits for them, awesome. I think that's amazing.
And I was being a little, tongue-in-cheek with me saying I could beat myself up or whatever. I didn't really mean that, anybody. I just Jane, you wrote the damn book. So
yeah, good for you. And in my book too, Sassy and Rude, I create little subgroups of moms and subgroups of daughters, like Nervous Nellie and the perfectionistic Pia and different things. But they're arbitrary distinctions. But if somebody can read a word in there that resonates with them, or there's an overlap, I'm kind of a little bit of that and a little bit of that and a hodgepodge of this. I think it's the gift that we give people. So kudos to you for writing that book, and now I have to go get it.
And so what was your motivation to do this? Your relationship with your daughter and how well that seems to have really worked out. I mean, often, I guess people have happy stories where things do work out, or more trying stories when they continue to be faced with some difficult behavior patterns, some, difficult relationships. But your title is so fun. And so I'm wondering if that is the tone that you wanted to take or not.
Yes, thank you for that question. So the original origin of this book was called Why Is She Such a Bitch? And the inspiration was when my daughter was 19, and she, like a typical 19-year-old, is like, Mom, give me. I want everything that you've got, and I'm going to do the minimum. And it was challenging to me, and I actually sent it to my agent, and she loved it, but we could not get a publisher for it. So I put it on hold. And then lo and behold, I think it was 12 or 13 years later,
no.
I'm actually in the hospital with a paper cut that went rogue, that my entire hand swelled up like a baseball glove. And I'm in the hospital, and I get a note from my agent. Hey, guess what? I was at a lunch, and one of the editors I was talking to, she didn't like anything I had to offer her, but she asked for my backlist, and she saw that, and she said, I love it. I want this book.
Wow.
So so I was like, well, my daughter and I are really good right now. We've done a lot of, but why not? Why can't I take everything that I've learned and all the moms and daughter duos that I've had in my practice over the years to create something that maybe people could really heal from? So it really became that was the journey of this manuscript, this proposal, that was super fun. And it was such a delight. I wanted to write it with the seriousness of the issues, right? Because when moms and daughters are suffering together, it's one of the most painful things on the planet. Like, you want your mom in your court, you want your daughter in your court. I mean, this relationship is so precious and so important. Not that fathers and sons or fathers and daughters or mothers and sons is not important. Absolutely it is. But this just one really resonated for me to speak to. So I wanted to be super compassionate about the pain and the heaviness of it, but I also wanted to have some fun with it. And so, as is typical of almost all of my titles of my book, the publishers tell me at the last minute, you got to change the title. We can't have bitch in the title. I'm like, why not? What was that famous book? It's the bitches that get the corner office or something like that.
Oh, that's funny. I don't know that. Yeah.
Or Men Who Love Bitches. I mean, bitches in many titles. One of my other titles was Dump That Chump, is one about relationships. But the original title was Chuck That Schmuck. But final hour the night before, Publisher's like, oh, you cannot have schmuck in
And
the title.
don't they understand that the title of a book is usually the most difficult thing to write? And if you finally get it and you think, oh, and then they say, I'm sorry, you have until, tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock.
Right. As you know,
So,
yes.
because the podcast is about older women, I'm curious to know what your clients might have to say as older women, if you have any, about their relationships with their daughters. Are they coming to you with issues or problems that are somewhat different, or they're just being recycled no matter what the age?
That's a great question. So I'll tell you, this book is mostly, it can apply to moms of younger daughters, but primarily it's moms of older daughters. Okay. So, at least of age, if you will, sure. 18 and above. But primarily, I would say that most of the examples in the book are, maybe the daughters are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and moms are in their 50s and 60s and 70s. Right. But I find that just the women that I talk to who are older, by the time they're up there in their 70s and 80s, they've kind of figured it out already. So they don't necessarily need my help. And those who haven't, if they're healthy enough, they've usually just said, I've done the best I can, which is part of the journey. Sometimes we can do all we can. Like they say, you can lead a horse to water, right, but you cannot make it drink. And you can do everything to try to heal. If your daughter is not willing, then it's not likely to happen. But a lot of the moms and daughters that I've seen are like 30-somethings and 50-somethings or 60-somethings. And they're in that, they're both so alive and vibrant at that age, right? The moms I have this one that I talk about in the book, and I have to disguise everything because you can't break confidentiality. But this mom and the daughter she had to come back. She was a launched child, but then she unlaunched and had to come back home, and they had to live together. And she was in her 30s, and her mom was in her 60s, and they really went at it. They could not get it together because mom still expected the daughter to look up to mom as mom was mom, and the daughter actually was like, okay, great, then I'm going to regress to like 5 years old and make you do everything for me. So that did not work out. So there was a lot of back and forth of understanding that they're both adult women. They're both independent. They both have the right to their say and stuff, and they just needed to learn how to communicate in a way as two adults, adult to adult, still with that mother-daughter bond, but adult to adult, if that makes sense.
It does. And am I assuming we're talking things like active listening, where instead of being accusative or anything else angry, that you can repeat somewhat differently, you can mirror the other person? Are we going in that kind of direction?
Absolutely. And anger is one of those emotions that I say is a secondary emotion, even though we feel it as if it's the main emotion. It's almost always covering up something else like sadness or fear. So when we can drop into that place, it's a lot easier to be seen and be heard when we're in a more pain state, if you will. If I say, I'm deeply hurting about this, I would like lots of I's, not to the level of narcissism, but this is my interpretation of what's going on. I observe this in you. I'm interpreting it to be this, and then this is how I feel about it, right? So if your daughter comes home for a vacation, if you have one, do you have a daughter, by the way?
No, I only have a son.
Okay. So your son comes home for vacation because it all applies, right? He comes home. How old is he?
Josh is 53. Remember, I'm 80. So we're talking in the later years.
Okay. Yeah, but so an adult man comes in. Do you ever notice any kind of regressive tendencies in him when he comes home to mom?
Of course.
Yes, because you're mom,
and he's an only. And
he's an only.
And I'm a very empathic, hands-on mom. So you put all that together. Sure, that's how he acts. Yeah. I don't blame him. You should.
So I guess what I'm saying is when you have to communicate something to him like, hey, honey, you're here. Remember, this is still my house. I have these particular guidelines that we need to follow because this is how I run my life. We're doing that as, look, if you don't make your bed in the morning, I interpret that as disrespecting me. And when you disrespect me, I feel sad. And it's my interpretation. He may say, oh, mom, I'm just a slob. Or, oh, mom, you know what? I don't see the point in making a bed. Or I don't see, whatever this goes on with moms and daughters, moms and sons,
Yeah.
fathers, daughters, fathers and sons. It doesn't matter. It's about being respectful, but honest.
Well,
And yes,
yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
I statements, I statements,
Yeah.
non-blaming, and using the most compassion that you can, because being angry at someone is like being resentful, and resentments are like swallowing poison and waiting for the other guy to die. So,
Oh, I like that. I'll have to keep that. I'm switching gears just a little bit. I read that you are often referred to as the love warrior. Where did that tag come from? What does it mean?
oh, absolutely. So I spend a great deal of my career dealing with people and their relationships. And I'm somebody who really will fight for one's relationship, because if you can make the changes within your relationship that you already have established, and you've bonded, and you know how hard it is to meet somebody new that you're compatible with, so you want to work with what you have. You picked this person for a reason, and somehow maybe you fell out of love, or you found them to be not the perfect match, right? You were disappointed, you had expectations that weren't met. Okay, but let's work and see if there's something that can be healed, because healing, if we heal those old wounds that have been created, even betrayals, right? Even I've worked with couples where I had one couple where the guy cheated on her 9 times. When she finally, 9 different people across their 40 something year marriage. And you know what? He got into his own personal therapy. She was in therapy. We did couples therapy, and they were together after all that, because they found out what was broken. They found out, they understood the whys, and they understood how to make that different and to seal those cracks, because they both took some responsibility for why that occurred. Not that anybody is responsible for somebody else's actions
Right.
such as that, but what was broken in the relationship, what needed to be healed. So I call myself a love warrior, a warrior for love, because I will fight. Unless somebody's completely unwilling to take a look at their own part in something, then I will fight for them.
Well, and I'm sure doing what you're doing then, you've heard about some of these very different kinds of living arrangements, something together but apart, where they have a monogamous relationship, but they choose to live in 2 separate places, and they can get together when they want to. And apparently it's women more than men that are instigating. And it's not surprising, and I'm talking about older women, so they're getting to the point where, yes, we've been married for 40 years or whatever it is, and they don't want to get involved with somebody, and then, well, this is sort of different. There's the other thing about not wanting to sign yourself up to be caretaker for a new relationship, knowing, that at some point somebody's going to, need a little tending to. And in this case, the woman would say, do your kids, do your friends, hire somebody, but that's not going to be my job. I'm just curious. I didn't mean to go off on this one so much.
Oh, no, it's wonderful. It reminds me of one of my best friends. She and her a partner who has now passed away, he did, but they lived a mile away from each other for 20 years before they finally moved in together. And they moved in together because she had broken her leg and she really needed help. And so that's what they did. But they had this really very remarkable relationship doing that. They were very close by. They always had 2 days apart to make sure that they had their own space, their own friends, and their own time. But it really, really worked for them. Now, in a lot of situations, that's not practical. It's expensive. It doesn't really work out. But I think that one of the motivators for that type of living situation is exactly what you're saying. Somebody doesn't want to become the caregiver. And I'm assuming most of your audience is women, so I can say a little bit of a bad thing here.
Yes, you can.
That men can get really needy as they get older. We call them very bad patients, when they're sick. They're very baby-like sometimes. Well, that just gets worse when they really get sick or when something happens. So it can be very challenging for women, especially those who are still really active and very vibrant. And women seem to be a little bit more motivated. I don't know know why, but it's my observation and my stereotype, so it may not hold true, to keep themselves fit and in shape. They get like the second wind because menopause takes us down for so many people, and it's really hard to fight that. And when you finally find something that wins for you, and you find yourself getting healthier and learning how to cope with that, it's a really big plus. And a lot of men just let themselves go, and they get overweight, and they get sluggish, and they're like, hey, Lucy, get that for me and do that for me, and become like children again. It's like, hello.
Not happening. So are these the same issues that women are dealing with, period? It's just angled based on where they are on the lifespan. I don't think that's a clearly asked question.
I think I know exactly where you're going. It's like, what's the difference between a 20-something today and an 80-something
Thank
today?
you.
And there is a huge difference. There's a huge difference because let's look at our world, the technology, the advancements, the changes. And when you and I were talking before the show about growing up, like you could ride your bike. Just recently, I was talking to friends of the family since I've known since I was a baby, basically. We were in the same apartment complex, et cetera. And remembering, wow, we used to get on our bikes and we used to ride to the mall, and there was a trampoline, there was a miniature golf place, there was an arcade, a movie theater, and a mall. We'd leave the house at 8 in the morning on a Saturday and come back when it was dark. You had to be home by dark because that was, nope. There was a payphone then, but there were no other ways of communicating, right? So it was very trusting and kind of scary. I mean, I don't know a mom today that would let their kid go off for a whole day, or a grandma or a great grandma. And I'm a grand aunt right now, and not yet a grandma. I hope someday soon. But and watching this little guy who's just going to be turning 7, how much I'm like a helicopter over him, because the world is so scary. You hear these horrible things. I just think it is different.
It is
so
different.
I think we have. Yeah, and older women have to process things in a different way. You have to like open your mind to what is today and not get too stuck in what was, because that's not what's so anymore. Maybe in certain small towns, maybe in certain places, it's a little bit more like that. But here living in the city, where do you live, by the way? Where are you?
I'm in Evanston, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. So
my favorite publisher was from Evanston.
Who's that?
It was Agate Publishing. That was for my book, Your Boss Is Not Your Mother.
Love it. That's very cute. I don't know the publishing company, but I do like that title. That's great.
Yeah.
So what else have you been coming across? We were just talking about the differences between older and younger in terms of their life experience vis-a-vis freedom, vis-a-vis not having to be constantly hooked up to a phone or a buzzer or whatever else, and having that much more free willing. I don't even remember being afraid to, ride my bike down the block or.
Well, we were also much more shielded from the news, right? I mean, your parents would turn on the news at a certain period of time when you were busy doing something else, your homework or something like that. Now, I mean, the news feeds on every phone, on tablets, on iPads, on computers. It's just constant. It's all over. It's all billboards. It's on bus stops. It's just, we're inundated. And I also wanted to say, as you were talking about that I don't want to miss this point because I think it's so critical, is one of the other things that's really sad in our culture, and I think it's different in other cultures, but in Western culture, we've lost sight of really respecting the elderly, like really embracing the wisdom of life's experiences and stuff. And I say that, and I have tears in my eyes about that, because I think we work so hard as moms, as daughters, as people, as human beings on this planet, to do good, to do the right thing, to be a good person, to serve others, to be compassionate. That's very much the nurturing component of women. And then we get to this age and we kind of, I think, expect rightfully a little bit of like looking up to, like, so maybe the youngsters would look up to us and say, hey, what do you have to say about that, grandma or great grandma or mom? Because you've lived all these years, you've seen it all. What do you say? And instead, they're often just dismissed. Oh, we have to have her at the table. Where are we going to put her? Oh, she says the same story over and over again. Well, it's a great story.
Correct.
So listen to it 10 times if you have to.
Well, ageism, very sadly, is alive and well. People talk about it as the last ism, And I know a lot of people who spend their lives working on this issue and trying to dispel the stereotypes to encourage intergenerational relationships so that the young can learn from the old and vice versa, because there's plenty that, older people can learn from younger. It's tough, and it's really tough in business, I understand. I'm slightly removed because I've always been a freelancer. But, I hear stories of what's going on in the treatment of women in the workplace. Older women are supposed to be invisible. We're not supposed to matter. Our opinions don't count. And then, oh my God, look at what they're going to look like. They've got some wrinkles and crinkly skin and, wow, that's not something I want to become. Right. So, there are lots of barriers, lots of hoops to have to jump through.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's really tragic. So I don't know, what do we do? How do we solve that problem? I haven't mastered that one yet, but and I don't know that I ever will, but I think that putting the message out there. I mean, when you are of still sound mind and you have people in your life and you notice these things, I think it's important to educate the younger ones. Like, hey, you know what? I do deserve some respect here. I have some things to offer. Please don't treat me that way. And it's important to have a voice.
I go back to my writing days, listening to a teacher I had, and it was show, don't tell. He said one of the real traits of good writing are writers who are showing what's happening. They're not telling, they're not narrating. Yeah. And in the same fashion, I think that as an older woman, for example, that possibly my contribution can be showing. I can show people what it is I do, what I'm like, what my body is like, what I can do. And I think by being a role model that way, perhaps, there may be a few people out there over the long term that can benefit it. Because I think, we can't talk at people. That's not going to work. The active listening that you were describing earlier and the clear I statements and the non-judgmental approach to other people, that's all excellent. But I think really, because when people, and I'll just use myself as an example, but when they hear me or meet me or see me, generally the response is, oh my God, you can't possibly be 80. Oh, can I see your driver's license? I mean, you're really killing. And all I can say is, this is what 80 looks like on me. This is my 80. It has necessarily not much to do with anybody else. But I find that question, we're getting way off track, and that's my fault. Right. But I find that when someone says, oh, you can't be 80, you don't look 80, I take it as a compliment, which is part of my built-in ageism, right? Because I'm thinking, oh, their image of an older person is fill in the blank. And because I don't look like that, then, I must be some kind of seventh wonder of the world. So it gets very tricky because the experts talk a lot about our own inbred ageism that women carry around with them as much, if not more, than other folks.
Agreed. We have so much pressure to look a particular way or to look in the media. I mean, these women who are in their 80s still working, they've had so much work done on themselves in terms of plastic surgery and enhancements and this and that, because we're really telling people it's not okay to just be who you are and age gracefully in your own way, in your own body, and whatever your genetics have given you, and then how do you complement that, right? So I think one of the things, as you were speaking, and I thought that was really beautiful to bring that up, but to talk about that, is it's really important that we be the best we can be with what we have, and do that. And I'm not saying somebody can't go get Botox or whatever, that we're going to do it anyway, but try to really celebrate who you are. And the other piece to that is, I know so many people who live through life, they walk through life wanting certain people to love them or care about them that are just an empty well for water. And when you go to an empty well for water, you're going to be thirsty. So don't. Find a full well. So celebrate yourself. Find groups of women who celebrate you, who you can celebrate them, where you feel at ease in your own body, in your own skin, in your own self, that you can share that. Don't keep pounding on the door of somebody who closes and slams the door on you. And sometimes that's family, right? Sometimes family is where we turn to, and they're really not acting much like family or a friend. So go elsewhere. Find new groups. Find new people who can really enhance and celebrate who you are. I think that's critical.
Well, I hope people will find you and find your books. I love the titles. You're having good fun. And even if the editors say, I'm sorry, but you must change this in 20, it just sounds like a horrible thing to happen. And it happened to you twice. And for those of you who are authors out there, for me, it's the very last decision that I make. And I've been working with it for months and months or years and years. And then to be told, it's not going to fly.
Well, not even twice, actually. My first book was called The Abuser-Friendly Syndrome, which I thought was really powerful. And it became Healing the Sensitive Heart after 47 other titles.
Oh, my
but you
God.
know what? And whoever knows, right? They wanted to get a title that they think is going to sell and something that's not going to push somebody else away. But God, I thought Abuser-Friendly Syndrome is really making a strong statement.
It's like, wait a minute. Yeah, it makes you think, what do you mean a friendly and an abuser? I don't get how those two. So it's that,
because
that hook, right? You give them a hook.
It's like a Stockholm syndrome. Yeah. Wow. Anyway, titles are important, but mostly if people would like to find me, I'm at drdebraonline.com, DRDEBRA online.com, and I have social media and such. I'm still in practice, and I love what I do, and I love writing, and I love talking to people like you. You're amazing, and so vibrant. It's wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for spending this time with me. I wish we had more, but maybe next time. So thank you so much. Women Over 70 Aging Reimagined is the 2025 Astra Award-winning weekly podcast dedicated to women 70 to 110 who are rewriting the script on aging. The personal journeys you hear affirm that older women live vital and engaged lives full of courage, contribution, and creativity. Women Over 70 is more than a podcast. Join their Aging Reimagined Circle, which meets monthly online.